Alright, people are whining that the price of used cars has gone totally insane, but if you look around, it's not always as bad as you think. Customer just bought this for his daughter. It's a 2003 Honda Accord with 90-something thousand miles on it. He paid $3,500. And hilariously enough, he got this at a used car lot. It was a trade-in at a Honda dealer. Then they sold it to the used car lot who sold it to him for $3,500. He's a combat veteran, just recently retired. He spent a lot of time, months and months, till he found this thing. Take your time when you're looking for a used car. Now, of course, for his daughter, you don't want an ugly looking car. Check around, make sure it's not all bashed in. In this case, it's not. It's still got the original Honda wheels. And this could do with a little buffing up, but that's no big deal. Car's actually in excellent shape. And of course, he was smart. He checked underneath, and there's no leak. Nothing's leaking. No fluids. And the interior, they claimed it was a one-owner car, an older man, I believe it. It's only got 92,000 miles on it. It's in really good shape. Lots of room in these Accords. They were great cars. Well, Honda, you turn the key, starts right up. The AC blows freezing cold. No, it isn't all the car, so you got a 6-disc CD changer. It does still work. But in this case, the check engine light is on, even though it runs okay. So let's check it out. Plug the out scan tool in. Now, this particular Honda Accord was made in Ohio in the United States, 1993. Now realize Honda's been making cars in Ohio since 1982. They've been making them there a long time. It's a bit headquarters. I've been there. It's an amazing facility. So even though it's not made in Japan, these are still excellent vehicles. Now we'll look at the code, and it's P0141 about the oxygen sensor heater. Now the car runs perfectly fine. What happens is, years ago, they made the car oxygen sensors have little heaters in them because it would warm up faster. So for like the first minute and a half of you driving a car, it doesn't pollute too much, right? It's a real nitpicky thing. Well, generally the circuits burn out in the oxygen sensor, but that only affects the startup of the car with a little more pollution. It really isn't going to affect the running of the car. We're going to look at the oxygen sensor data to see what's happening. We'll check out the Honda OEM Enhanced and the live data. Here's the oxygen sensor output. We'll do a graph of it. Supposed to go up and down. Guess what? It's going up and down. We'll rev the engine up. You can see it's going up and down. So in this case, the oxygen sensor itself is working perfectly fine. It's just that it isn't heating up fast enough. You could drive a car 100 years this way, isn't going to hurt anything. The guy lives here in Clarksville, Tennessee. They don't do emissions testing, so he doesn't care that the stupid check engine light is on with that stupid code. If you live where they do inspections, you would have to replace bank 1, sensor 2, the oxygen sensor, by a catalytic converter, and the code would go away unless it had burned out the circuit or burned out driver control inside the computer or the wiring went bad. Generally, it's always the heater goes out. But all that does is affect the startup for the first minute or so of the car. So he doesn't care. He's going to live with it. He's been driving it for a couple of months. Like, there's no problems other than the stupid check engine light stays on. So that's no big deal. Let's do an all module scan now. There it is right there. Push go. That's going to scan everything. These Honda Accords are rugged vehicles. They're strong engines, and the transmission is an automatic. It's one that Honda built themselves. Honda's been making those trannies great. They had problems in the past, but they don't have problems anymore. They got a good engineering company. Now the transmission is a 5-speed automatic that Honda makes. They're excellent transmissions. They get good power and good gas mileage combination. They got a lot of zip to them, but they get decent gas mileage. You could get a little better gas mileage by having a tranny that was a little bit sluggish, but people like these cars because they're zippy. It has 160 horsepower, but it's also got a very good variable valve timing system that Honda invented. Well, now the computer's done. It's got one code for fuel injection module. Let's see what that says. Aha! It's the same code. It's the oxygen heater sensor. So like it said, does it affect the running of the car? Who cares? And it also has 2 body electrical codes. Let's see what they are. Honda relay module, lost communication. Basically codes that don't mean all that much. They get aged. Sometimes the computers lose power through a relay or something. The car runs fine, stops fine, who cares? So let's take it for a road test. See if you got his $3,000 worth, $3,500. So I'll take it for a spin, and the first thing I noticed, put it in drive, what happens? Nothing. It doesn't shake anymore. It's still smooth even though it's old. And once we get going down the road, this thing still got the original struts on it. It doesn't ride bad at all. Hondas were always fun, driving, comfortable cars, if you get in an Accord. It handles twisties fine, no problem at all, zooming around. And as I drive, everything sounds normal. I don't hear any roaring wheel bearings or engine or transmission bearings. It's still a pretty quiet car. Now this guy is a retired infantryman, so you know, he's not rich. He spent a lot of time researching this to get a nice car for his daughter. The guy knew what he was doing. So let's come to a stop and see how much of this 160 horsepower are still left in this thing. And here we go. Once the VVT kicks in, still shifts smooth, got decent acceleration. Of course it's not breakneck acceleration, but it's zippy. It's fun to drive, and they're pretty safe vehicles. This is his daughter's first car. He made a pretty good choice. Personally, I'd have no qualms about jumping in this car and driving it to California. The only thing it really needs is a new fan belt, or drive belt, to be politically correct. It's still a very fun car to take out in the country and drive in the twisties or stop and go traffic. It's got no problems at all. Really, I'm amazed at how smooth it still idles. The engineers knew what they were doing when they built this 4-cylinder Accord. And the AC? It's still freezing cold. It's hot and humid today. It's going to rain some more. Honda's had AC problems in the past, but not on these later model Honda Accords. They're pretty bulletproof. I just fixed a 99 Accord. The compressor still worked. All it did was have an electrical problem, and I rewired it, and it still blew cold from a 99. Hey, the brakes still work fine. None of the suspension parts are even creaking. I'd say this retired infantryman did a good job for his daughter's first car. Like I say, he admitted he spent months looking for the thing. He just didn't go out and snatch the first thing he saw. He got himself a good deal for $3,500 in this coronavirus pandemic. The prices have gone nuts, so don't be totally disheartened and say, oh, I can't get a car, the prices are too high. There's still some deals out there if you have cash. He paid cash. So really, if you can find a car like this, then the only thing that really needs to be done is a new fan belt, drive belt, whatever you call it. You can see it's all cracked on the inside there, so it's time to change it. If you can find a Honda Accord like this with less than 100,000 miles for $3,500 and the only thing it needs is a fan belt, snap that baby up. Yeah, the check engine light was on, but hey, a lot of times you can take that to your advantage and get the car cheaper if you live somewhere else, so you got to buy an oxygen sensor. Advance Auto has the original equipment Denso. This is the oxygen sensor. Bank 1 sensor 2, the one after the catalytic converter. It's not the airflow sensor meter, it's just an oxygen sensor. They charge a whopping $34.49 for the original equipment Denso one. Not a Bosch aftermarket one, the actual one. Now, if it had been the front oxygen sensor, that's actually what's called the air-fuel ratio sensors. They cost well over $100. Some of them are $250. But this is just the back one. But since it only affects the startup of the car, who cares? He lives in Clarksville, he doesn't need to get it inspected. So he didn't have to do that at all. But if he wants to, hey, he can spend $35 and screw it on himself. Okay, the lady just bought this Lexus. She had a pickup truck and she's kind of missing her old pickup. She wondered if she made a mistake buying this. I kind of doubt it, but she got it for $10,500, which is a really good price. It's all-wheel drive. It's an IS 250. Got the original wheels and everything, and it looks to be in very good shape. We're gonna check it all out with my machine, but first, the one problem she has, it's got those goofy self-leveling headlights. She can't get them to go higher. They're down too low. Took it to the Lexus dealer, and of course, they wanted like $1,400 to fix what's there. Not replace them, but fix it and reprogram it. So, basically, she can do what I do with my wife's Lexus. But you see, she's had these back ones replaced with the cool arrows on them. Those aren't stock. So I suggested, like my wife's car, change the front ones too. She said they can replace the two for $600. You get decent ones. They're non-adjusting. They don't follow the road as you turn the wheel. Well, this doesn't follow the road as you turn the wheels. They're pointed down, she can't see far enough. So really, why waste all that money where Lexus says they can fix it for $1,300? Went for $600. Not only you get ones that'll never do it again, which is a big deal, but they look better than these. They're fancier. There's nothing wrong with going aftermarket on plastic pieces. I did it on my wife's ES300 and she loves it. She says it looks so much better than the original one did. The halo lights inside it too with LEDs, and it was the same deal. I paid like $270 each for two of them and she loves it. They've lasted. Don't waste your money on tech stuff when you really don't need it, and then follow you around stuff. Really, come on, when they get old, they all break, even a Lexus. And of course, if you have a BMW, and then you find out, oh, well, that's gonna be $6,000 to fix those, well, you're gonna go aftermarket. And there's nothing wrong with aftermarket. So let's check it out. She's like my wife, she's short, so I gotta move the seat back or I wouldn't even be able to fit in. Well, as we're looking, the leather's still in good shape. And as per usual, this is a Lexus made in Japan. Now you notice some noise. No, it doesn't have a hole in the back. She missed her pickup truck, so she souped up the exhaust. It sounds a whole lot better. Check under the hood, there. Now we can see things. It's a New York State car. So you're gonna see all the aluminum parts have corrosion on them. It doesn't mean anything. They're all gonna corrode, and you're gonna hear a little bit of valve clatter just from the age. Everything still works. You see all that stuff? We'll look underneath because it is a New York car. Under we go. There's no body rust, just superficial rust on the rest. It's still solid as can be. Even though this is a 2010, they really knew how to do the zinc undercoating and rust proofing. These things really don't rust. Even in New York State. No, this wasn't a minor accident she knows about, which shows why the paint is faded here a little. They didn't repaint it correctly, but you could re-clear coat that. So let's hook up the old scanner. We'll see what kind of shape. Did she get a deal? Did she get ripped off? Well, the scanner's gonna tell us. Do a little intelligent diagnosis. Interior's in immaculate shape. Nice black and white leather. Oh, it knows everything, so let's check it out. Gonna be checking all this stuff. Oh, everything's green. Now while we're waiting, really, this is just a baby for a Lexus. It's only got 125,000 miles on it. And almost everything is green except for these two things. It'll probably be minor crap, but we'll look at it anyways. We'll look at the gateway. The AFS ECU communication style. And that's because it's got a problem with those stupid headlights that are supposed to follow. It's not working right. We're going to bypass that anyways and put just plain old headlights in it. And the code will always probably be there because it'll know the system's not working because it won't be hooked up anymore. But that's nothing. We knew that because they don't work. USB communication malfunction. It even says it here on the screen as we're checking it, that the USB box to check it, it's got a problem. You know, who cares? These systems are all backdated anyways. And this one is 12 years old. Let's face it, we all use our phones for driving. You can hook the phone up to this. The Google software that I use in my Pixel is infinitely better than the stuff that they put in any of the cars, especially that they did 12 years ago. Don't waste your money fixing that stuff. Don't even buy a car with it. Use your phone and connect it. I mean, they're all wireless nowadays. You already got a perfectly good phone that works as a device that's generally with Google more accurate than anybody else. Don't even worry about it. Other than that, everything is perfect. So let's kind of scan at the data too. I'll whip through to see if any of them aren't blue, meaning they're bad. All kinds of data. So we'll just whip through them. Everything's blue so far, but you're going to see there's an awful lot of information there. Blue, blue, blue. No misfires at all. Of course, it's Lexus. It's not going to have any misfires. Everything's still blue. We're on the E's now. Here we go. Blue, 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 blue. Everything's blue. It's a Lexus. I've showed you stuff with Genesis where they show wear with 100,000. This says 125,000, and look at the data. Variable valve timing angle stuff, 0. It's perfect. It's not 0.12, it's 0. It's perfect. I challenge anyone to show me a Genesis with 125,000 miles and all this data is 0 perfect. I've never seen one because the cams, the variable valve timing systems, wear. Lexus makes perfect systems. They last a really long time. Even though the top of the engine, the valve cover aluminum is all corroded looking, the 4 cams inside are working perfectly fine. So let's take it for a spin and see how it does. We'll start her up. And yeah, it sounds loud because she straight piped it, but I like it. And it's got the paddle shifters if you want. A bit close to the windshield wipers, so you notice they came on. I'm not used to it. You get on it, it really makes a nice sound, man. I can see why she misses her truck and took the exhaust mufflers and everything off. It really has a nice sound. And yes, it's a Lexus. It handles like a dream. These ISs have a very good suspension system. Now I gotta say, this woman knew what she was doing when she bought this used car. She watched my videos, did all the checks, and got a fantastic car. Okay, here we have a Toyota Venza. Are they good cars? Why'd they stop making them? Why'd they start making them again? Well, a lot of that had to do with marketing. This is a 2015 Venza. Guy just bought a few weeks ago. Americans call them mid-size SUVs, right? I mean, it's a lot bigger than my wife's Matrix, got a lot more room inside it, but to Americans, it's mid-size. And if you know anything about cars, basically, they're on a Toyota Camry chassis, engine, transmission, So they're reliable as can be. Look under the hood. 2.7 liter, variable valve timing with port injection, normal injection, a simpler car, a timing chain. Now you'll notice you see corrosion on this. Well, it's superficial corrosion because it's living in Indiana, but it came from Chicago. As we look under the car, solid metal, no rust. And look at the exhaust system. It's still real shiny because Toyota knows how to make metal on exhaust systems. My 94 Celica still has the original exhaust system on it. Yes, it's still the original exhaust system. That's how well they make them. It's got 101,000 miles. He paid $14,000 for it, but in November they were asking $18,000 something for it. Like I said, they stopped making Venzas and they started making them again. In some people's minds, they think, well, there's something wrong with the Venzas, right? There's nothing wrong with these cars. A car like this, which I haven't found anything wrong with yet. Scan tool showed the only problem was a startability concern, and that's because you can see it's got a brand new battery. This car sat on a lot on purchase for 3 months. The battery's going to go flat. When they go flat, you try to start the car. The computer remembers that. So it trips a code for startability concern. And this shows you that the car lots are not the greatest mechanics. Some don't even have mechanics. In that when they replace the battery, they should have gotten a machine like mine, my Autel, plugged it in and erase all the codes, because that code will stay in until somebody erases it. And in the case of this one, I've erased it. And I've already taken it for a road test, so they didn't come back. It was just because the battery was old and it sat for months. They replaced it. So if you're looking at a used car, you put in a scan tool, it's got a code for startability concern, but it starts perfectly fine. That just means the dodo heads didn't reset it when they replaced the battery. Cars have more memory than they used to. They remember that stuff. So you can always take advantage of that. If you're looking at one, as you plug it in, it's a startability concern. Show it to them, look, it's got this code, it's a problem with start. I don't know if I want to buy this car. And try to get them to get the price down. My grandfather was a big horse trader mechanic, and he'd do stuff like that all the time. He'd see a car, he didn't care what color it was if he was buying it, but he'd look and say, I hate that color, I don't even know if I want to buy this car. He didn't really even care, but use things like that as motivation to try to get the price down. Now, as we go inside, we'll see one of the reasons the guy bought this car, and it's the transmission. It is a 6-speed electronically controlled automatic transmission. This isn't one of those CVT crappers. Really crisp shifts, and still it gets 27 miles a gallon. For an SUV, that's pretty good gas mileage. I know a lot of guys, you gotta buy the V6. No, you don't. You're gonna see soon this 4-cylinder engine has plenty enough horsepower, and it's simpler. There's less moving parts. There's less things to go wrong. I like the 4 cylinders. You don't need a big V6. Now, okay, maybe if you're the type of guy that you're gonna use this, you're gonna put a trailer hitch on it, and you're gonna tow your boat and stuff like that, yeah, then you'll probably be better off with the V6 engine. But this guy bought this as his retirement car. He's gonna retire in a couple of years, and as you can see, he doesn't even have a trailer hitch hooked up to it. He doesn't care about that. Neither does he care about all-wheel drive. Now, the new ones, they're hybrid, all-wheel drive. You don't have any choice. That's the only way they're making them. And you're going to pay extra money for something that you may not want to pay for, that you feel like you don't need. A lot of guys, I don't really want all-wheel drive. You know, I'm not towing anything. I don't need a V6 engine. These 4s put out plenty enough horsepower to get where you're going. They hold up. This one doesn't burn any oil. It gets 27 miles a gallon on the highway now. They're basically a Toyota Camry platform with an SUV stuck on it. And everybody knows how reliable the Camrys are. Like I said, all you guys up north know, within a few years, all the aluminum starts to corrode. That's just the way that it goes. Aluminum is going to corrode. It will cause all this corrosion and stuff. It's just superficial. It doesn't mean anything. So let's get inside. Start her up. Starts right up. Now the backup camera's kind of small, nondescript. Most Toyotas don't have the greatest backup cameras. You can see things, but it's nothing great, really. Now you're nice and high-ish up in the air. Not too high, but it's easy to climb into. And like I say, look, it's just a little bitty 4-cylinder engine, but it can get up and go if you really want to. I mean, look, here we are. We're at a starting stop, and it spins the tires. You can see the traction control slipping and coming on and off, but it's got plenty enough power to get you where you're going. Cruise all day at 80, 90 miles an hour, whatever the speed limit is, or a little above. It's Not gonna hurt anything. It's a Toyota Camry, just in the disguise of an SUV. It's relatively quiet inside, and even though it's an SUV, it's got decent handling characteristics because after all, it's a Toyota Camry chassis that it's based upon. It's a nice interior, full carbon fiber, black and chrome. A lot of room in the back seat. Now, this isn't a 3-row, it's a 2-row. Do you really need 3 rows all the time? This guy's retiring. Him and his wife are going to be riding around this thing all the time. Hey, you can still put 3 people in the back seat and carry 5 people. You don't always need 3 rows. Now, if you need 3 rows, then you're going to have to go upscale. And if you're going Toyota upscale, or Lexus, or Acura, you're going to be paying upscale dollars too. You're not going to find one of those things for $14,000 in the shape that this thing is in. Transmission shifts like a dream, even though it's got 101,000 miles on it. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, hey, it's a boring SUV. Well, it's a Toyota Camry SUV, and if you think that's boring, well, it's boring to have something that gets good gas mileage, doesn't burn oil, doesn't break down, still looks nice after years, doesn't have any problems, and still is a pretty zippy vehicle. Now, one of the main reasons this guy bought this car is because he wanted simplicity. He didn't want to buy a newer one that had a hybrid system, all kinds of complex electronics that this one doesn't have. Hey, I gotta say, it still has a real parking brake. You step on it, right? No electronic parking brake here, just a real one. Pops back up, mechanical, it'll last forever. It's a later model Toyota, so it still has traction control. You can turn it on or off. And check it out, it's got a big glove box. You can actually put stuff in, a whole bunch of stuff, not some tiny little useless thing. For cheapskates like me, these fabric seats can last a long time. Look, these aren't worn at all. And the edge isn't worn out. Lots of room in the back seat. Got its own heating and air conditioning too. They're great vehicles. They just, for some bizarre reason, stopped making them and started making them again. And you can take advantage of that, because if people think, oh, they stopped making those for a while, people will shy away. Oh, those aren't very well-made vehicles, right? This thing sat for 3 months. As you can see, there's nothing wrong with it. It sat for 3 months because they were asking too much money for it. We live in a capitalist society. If people ask too much money for something, guess what? It's going to sit there and people aren't going to buy it, so it went from 18 down to 14. Patience is a virtue when it comes to stuff like that. You got to understand, there's all kinds of people out there that have all kinds of deals going on. The prices you see in these magazines like Edmunds that give you the value of the car is a load of horse manure. They just make up figures. Last time I read, those figures are based on what used car dealers say they sold their cars for. No proof of here's the invoice or that, just what they say they did. Some of those are so overly inflated, make your head spin. Guess what? If everybody pays that price, they'll keep asking that and more. So hold your position. This thing sat for 3 months. It was overpriced. Too bad. There's nothing wrong with the car. It wasn't sat there because it was a clunker. There's nothing wrong with it at all. It had the stupid code for startability problem because the battery was old and they had to replace it. Now, the interesting part about this particular car to me is that the guy works for Honda, building Hondas, but he bought a Toyota. Now that's sad. He was also looking at some Honda CRVs and stuff, but he couldn't find any. See, here's the thing. The Honda CRVs, they've been making them so long, they got such a good reputation that they will go for a higher price because, oh, they're great. They made them all these years, no problems, right? And it's the same thing with Toyota Camrys. They generally sell pretty fast because they've sold millions and millions of them over all these decades, right? But these, they stopped making them for a while, and it gives people a weird taste in their mouth. Sure, this doesn't have all the bells and whistles. All-wheel drive and no sunroof. Whoa, gee, I'm not going to buy a car because it doesn't have a sunroof, right? Do you need all-wheel drive? Most people don't. Is he going to be pulling anything? No. A 4-cylinder engine is fine. So if you can find a diamond in the rough like this thing, hey, by all means, you can get them to come down on price, buy it. Because there's absolutely nothing wrong with this car other than an image. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.